Good morning, everybody. So, here in Maine, we are in the middle of a heat wave. I just got in from a walk because it's cooler right now, but it's going to get hot later this afternoon. Speaking of other things that are hot, that's what my reading schedule has been like for the past couple of weeks. So I wanted to talk about my TBR for Pride Month first because I have those notes right here in front of me, and then I will get to talking about other books. So the books on my TBR for Pride Month are the Bright Falls trilogy, which I read back in March by Ashley Herring Blake. That trilogy gets a B+. All the Right Notes by Dominic Lim, which I have read in January and April. That gets an A-. Big Swiss by Jen Began, which gets a B. Orlando by Virginia Woolf, which gets a B. Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly, which gets a B+. The Chosen and the Beautiful by... Oh, shoot, I forgot the author's name. B. The Wicker King, B+, and Her Majesty's Royal Coven, C-. So the first book that I wanted to talk about was Something Wild and Wonderful, because that was this month's Reading the Rainbow Book Club pick at Print Bookstore, and I just had my meeting for that on the 10th, which was last Monday. So this book was my first book by Anita Kelly. I really liked her writing, and I really liked how she set the book on a Pacific Northwest hiking trail because I love nature and I love hiking, and it was hinted at throughout the book that one of the main characters was autistic, and I would have liked a lot if his disability had been explored a little bit more. So I hope in the next book that topic is brought up. I know the next book will probably focus on a different couple, but if Ben and Alexi are in the next book, I hope that his autism is really discussed more, because it would really add more insight to his character. One of the discussion questions is about Alexi writing letters to his parents, and I think not sending them was a good idea, because I don't think it would have helped him to send them, because it probably would have made his parents more upset with him, because he had a lot of anger towards his parents for how they treated him when he was a kid. And while it would be good for him to express those feelings, at the same time, it's probably not such a good idea, because from what I remember from reading those chapters with the letters, he sounded pretty resentful towards his parents. Another book that I just finished reading for Pride Month was Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, which is the first book in the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. I was recommended this YA series by my hairdresser, Andrea, because when I had my appointment last Tuesday, I was telling her that I was trying to get into the Twilight series again, but I just couldn't gauge any interest in it, because there are so many things about that book series that do not sit well with me analyzing it as an adult. So I decided to pick up Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And the reason why this is on my Pride Month TBR is when I was looking up the tags on Goodreads, I noticed that it said LGBTQ. So I don't remember which characters were the gay couple, but I think Rick Riordan did a really good job with writing this couple. Percy Jackson and the Olympians is the mythology series about kids fighting monsters like Medusa. So I'm also really into Greek mythology lately, so this is perfect for me. This series is perfect for me to read because other mythology books that I've read this year are Piranesi by Susanna Clark and The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. And I really like those books, so I'm really excited to read the rest of this series. Another book I just finished that is for Pride Month is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This is my first book by her, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked the build-up between the two main characters' relationship. It was beautiful. Another book that I wanted to talk about is called The Chosen and the Beautiful. This is a sapphic retelling of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, only it focuses on Jordan and Daisy Buchanan. So it's basically about how Jordan has feelings for Daisy and the kind of relationship that builds up between them. And I really think the author captured the atmosphere of the Great Gatsby book very well in his book, and it made me really want to read The Great Gatsby again, which I'm actually planning to for my TBR for September, which I have already gotten a head start on, as my Books with Lake Speech Vibes TBR is almost done. So my idea for my September TBR is to reread books I read in school to see if my opinions of them hold up. So I was in middle school and high school before Goodreads came out, so I'm pretty new to Goodreads. I actually started to use it in 2015 and took a couple of years off from using it and totally forgot that I had an account and started using it actively again last year. Goodreads, I think, came out in 2006, which was when I was a junior in college. So the books that I'm reading for my September TBR are books that I read from 6th grade to sophomore year in college. So, so far for this TBR, I have read Hatchet by Gary Paulson, which I read in 6th grade. And I remember when I read that book, I didn't really like it because I don't remember why I didn't like it. I just remember not liking it. But after rereading it, I really liked the creative ways that Brian came up with to survive in the wilderness after his plane crash for 54 days, which was quite an impressive feat, I would say. And I didn't realize that Hatchet was actually part of a series. So now I am going to be rereading the whole entire series that started with Hatchet. The second book I read on this TBR was Lord of the Flies, which I read in 9th grade at Sohegan High School when Peggy Silva was my teacher. And I didn't like this book back then, and I still don't like it because basically it's about boys who are on an island and it's a survival story, kind of like Hatchet, but basically these boys end up like fighting in a war and like cannibalizing each other, and I just didn't like that. Too much body horror. Another book that I'm reading that's pretty similar, that's a more recent book that just came out, is called Wilder Girls, which Riley Marie and Sarah Without an H have both read, and I'm on page 150 right now, but I'm thinking of DNFing because, again, it's the gore and body horror and cannibalism, so I'm going to be at DNFing Wilder Girls. The next book on my books I read in school, do my viewpoints hold up TBR, is The Pearl by John Steinbeck, which I read in 7th grade at Amherst Middle School when Mrs. Curran was my teacher. So shout out to all of these teachers who I'm going to mention for books that I picked out for this TBR. The only school year I could not remember what books I read was 10th grade when Amy Gibbons was my teacher. So if Amy is watching this video, can you please message me and tell me what books we read that year so that way I can add them to my list, because that is the only year that I'm missing. So The Pearl is a story that's a historical fiction set in, I believe, the 1960s in California, and it's about a guy named Kino. His wife's name is Juana, and I love their relationship. It's very sweet. You can tell that they really care about each other. Kino is a fisherman, and he finds this pearl when he's fishing in the ocean, and basically, I think the pearl is supposed to symbolize something, but I can't exactly remember. So far, out of the books that I've read in school for my September TBR, Hatchet gets a B+, Lord of the Flies gets a C-, and The Pearl gets a B. Let's see. Back to the Pride Month TBR reviews. The other book that I wanted to talk about in this list was Her Majesty's Royal Coven. Apparently, this book is supposed to be coming out with a sequel. Millie Reads a Lot mentioned that in her TBR Pride video. I will not be reading the sequel to Her Majesty's Royal Coven, and the reason why is basically from analysis that I have seen on Goodreads, it's basically just too overly politicized, and it's basically based on what other people have said, it's basically like J.K. Rowling's Twitter feed from 2018 in a book, and as we know, J.K. Rowling was very opinionated against trans people, and as much as I love the Harry Potter books, after I finish my reread of the series, I will not be supporting that series anymore or wearing my Harry Potter and the Cursed Child shirt in my videos, because I just do not support J.K. Rowling's viewpoints, and I lost a lot of respect for her when she came out as anti-trans. So sadly, I will not be talking about Harry Potter anymore once I finish reading the books either next month or in August. I also wanted to mention some of the books that were on my TBR for new releases. So there were some books from March and April that I didn't get to talk about in my new releases video when I did new releases in March. Those books were The Rule Book by Sarah Adams, which came out around the same time as Funny Story and Just for the Summer, and Happily Never After by Lynn Painter, which came out at the end of March. So I'm going to talk about those two first. Happily Never After by Lynn Painter reminded me so much of the movie Wedding Crashers that came out in 2005, with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson. Basically, the couple in this book stand up at weddings and object to the couple being married, and that's basically their whole entire job. So I really liked the relationship build up between Sophie and Max, the two wedding crashers. And the other couple that was really sweet was the senior citizens that were Sophie's neighbors, Rose and Larry. I thought it was really sweet how they cared so much about Sophie. They were pretty much like her grandparents, and I mean, it reminded me of my grandparents, who I really miss a lot. So the next book I wanted to talk about was The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. For my Taylor Swift coded TBR last month, I read The Cheat Sheet, which I DNF'd at 54% because I just couldn't get into it, and I thought the main character was so whiny. Sarah Adams redeemed herself with The Rule Book. I found the female main character, Nora, to be much more relatable than Bree in The Cheat Sheet because, first of all, she's a journalist, and that's what I went to college for, journalism. My major is in communications. I was on a newspaper all throughout high school and college, and this blog initially started out as a blog where I would share my newspaper articles for the Milford Cabinet, because from 2008 to 2013, I was a freelance theater reviewer for the Milford Cabinet in Milford, New Hampshire, where I covered shows that were put on by Milford area players and Riverbend Youth Company and the Riverbend School of Theater Arts, which I'm not sure is active anymore. And also I reviewed shows that Peacock Players did in Nashua Theater Guild. So yes, I really thought the relationship between Nora and Derek was much more believable than Bree and I can't remember the guy's name in the cheat sheet, but their relationship just didn't seem believable to me at all. And I appreciate Sarah Adams for saying in the author's note to skip the spicy scene because it let me know which chapter to avoid. Currently for my new releases TBR, I am reading The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center, and I am loving it. Catherine Center has not really missed, in my eyes, all of her books so far, except for one, which I read last month, called Everything is Beautiful, have been 4 to 5 stars for me. So that's Hello Stranger, How to Walk Away, Things You Save in a Fire, and What You Wish For. The only book that I mean, it was, her writing is good all the time, but what stuck out for me in the book that I haven't liked by her, which is called Everyone is Beautiful, is the fact that all of the characters in these books are mothers, and I am not that, so I cannot relate to their experiences. But yes, Catherine Center has not missed once, and she did. I am on page 154 of the Rom-Commers, and I am really enjoying it so far. The Rom-Commers kind of reminds me of Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan, because it's about a screenwriter for romantic comedy movies, just like Nora is, and Nora Goes Off Script. And in Nora Goes Off Script, she writes a script that's a movie that's about her divorce, and that seems to be the similar type of thing that the main female character in the Rom-Commers is writing about. And I'm just really enjoying the development of the two main characters in this book. I am on chapter 17 in the Rom-Commers currently. And the other new release I wanted to talk about today was Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Most of Ali Hazelwood books have also been well liked by me. The only one that I did not like was the series of novellas that she came out with. With Not in Love, I really liked the development between Rue and Eli. It came across to me that Rue, the female main character in this book, was autistic coded. And I think it would have really benefited Allie Hazelwood if she had actually talked to somebody who was autistic while she was doing research for this character, because as somebody who is neurodivergent and knows people who have autism, I just didn't feel like the autism was very well represented in this book. By neurodivergency, I mean that I have a disability that is similar to autism, but I am not autistic. So I am correcting myself here, because in other videos I have said that I am autistic, but that is not correct. So in the video that Matt and I will be making, where we wrap up our June entertainment, I will be reviewing in that video the following books: This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune, Wildfire by Hannah Grace, and Tom Selleck's memoir, You Never Know. So I'm going to be reviewing Tom Selleck's memoir at the end of our commentary of Cougar Town. But if you end up skipping that part of our video because you're not interested in Cougar Town and how it compares to Friends, because that's what we're going to be talking about in that section, I will briefly mention here what I thought of Tom Selleck's memoir. As you all know, Tom Selleck played Richard, who is Monica's older boyfriend, and I have gone at length in my previous videos about how when I was younger, I really liked Monica and Richard as a couple, but now that I'm older, I kind of think that it's gross. So if you want more thoughts on that commentary, please watch my other videos where I have talked about it. So in his memoir, Tom Selleck does not really go into a lot of detail about his experience on Friends. He mostly just talks about Magnum PI and Blue Bloods a little bit, and behind the scenes stuff of his movie Three Men and a Baby that came out in 1987. So I really enjoyed learning about him, because obviously I watched him when he was on Friends, and I have not watched Blue Bloods yet, but I really liked learning about how he got his career. He was also a basketball player when he was in college, and that was really interesting to learn about too. So I highly recommend Tom Selleck's memoir, especially if you were a fan of him in the 1980s and watched Magnum PI, because he talks a lot about behind the scenes of that show in his book. But of course, I recommend it to anybody who was a fan of him when he was on Friends, or who currently watched his show Blue Bloods. So thank you. Have a nice day, and stay tuned for the video that Matt and I will be making, which will be out on the 29th at around 6 p.m. Thank you.